Why have one Sega Genesis when you can have two? After fixing the last Sega Genesis, I found this broken one listed on eBay, and I had to buy it for one specific reason. So let's take it over to the TV, plug it in, see what's wrong, and see why I decided to buy this one. So we'll start off by turning it on. And it does take just a second for the tuner to pick up the Sega, but it still works just fine. We can see that the Sega turns on. We have no issues. We've got image on the screen. We've got audio. And you're not going to be able to see it very well, but I should be able to show that if I wiggle the power cord, we have no issues at all. The power connector is rock solid on the Sega Genesis. But what we do have is if I wiggle the AV connector, we can see that the image goes in and out on this TV. As you can tell, just a little bit of wiggling on this cable just completely kills the signal. So let's go ahead and turn this off. And I'm going to switch real quick from the RF input to the composite input and show that it's not an issue with this cable. So real quick. All right, now we've plugged in the composite connection. Let's switch our source over here to composite, and we should turn it on and we should have a signal. There we go. So we can see we have composite working on this TV. I'm going to show if I just wiggle this connector again in the same way as before, we can see that it starts kind of cutting in and out. Not quite as bad as RF, but still definitely has issues. We can definitely see here it's cutting in and out. So on the previous Sega Genesis, it had a bad power connector. We reflowed that connector and it solved the problem. And I didn't realize there were RF issues, tuner issues, and so forth with the TV, so it took me down the wrong path. So I don't know if the AV port needed to actually be reflowed, but as we can tell on this new Sega Genesis, the power cord is good. The AV connector does have issues and does cut in and out just with some wiggling of the cable. So I'm guessing this is going to be the same problem as the last Sega Genesis, except this time it's on the AV port and not on the power connector. So let's take this over to the bench, take it apart, and see if we can confirm that that's the issue. So let's go ahead and tear this one down just like before. Again, we're going to start with the 4 large Phillips head screws in all 4 corners. And flip it over and take the top off. This one looks much cleaner on the inside than the last one did. And from here we have, I believe, 9 screws, 9 Phillips screws all around the outside to remove. And then lastly, we have the 2 screws that hold the board to the bottom shell. If we take the board out and look at the bottom, let's see if we are right. And a quick inspection doesn't look like they're bad, but let's get it under a microscope and take a closer look. So at a quick glance, these don't look too bad. They look okay from this side, but actually that one right here looks like it might have some cracked solder joints. But it could very well be a cold solder joint at this point. It might be that the solder is well connected to the pin, but it is starting to break away from the board itself. So I think we'll go ahead and reflow all of these pins. And while we're at it, we might as well reflow the ones on the power connector as well. I can see what looks like some cracking starting here. So we might as well take care of that while we're in the board. And let's just get all those reflowed and plug it back in and see if that solves our problem. So just like before, we'll start with a little bit of flex just to help this flow. Can move this down a little closer here. We'll go ahead and start with the power connector, just because these are closer. Let's get these done. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the fume extractor and touch the rest of these pins up. And let's go ahead and clean up the board and see what it looks like. All right, before putting it back together, let's go ahead and take it back to the TV and see if that solved our problem. All right, I've got it all plugged back in, just temporarily, don't have it back in the case, but I've got it connected to the composite input on the TV. So let's turn it on, make sure it still works. So that's good. All right, so from here, let's try to see if we can wiggle this connector. And again, you're probably not gonna be able to see it very well, but I am wiggling it quite a bit. We can see that there is no disruption in the signal. So I think we're good. Let's go ahead real quick and plug it into the RF input, just because that was a bit more obvious when it was kind of flaking out on us. So let's try that out real quick and then turn it on. This did seem like it tuned a lot faster than before as well. So that's good. Let's see if we can wiggle this connector, if we still have that same issue. And we don't. There we go, let's check it again. We can see that this is rock solid now. There are no issues at all. And I'm wiggling this pretty good, and it is not flaking out on us at all. So that's great news. I think just reflowing those pins on that AV connector was all we needed to do on this one. So at this point, just like before, I'm going to clean off the board, clean out the case, and put it all back together. And I think we should be good to go.
Sega Genesis breakdown. The screen is flaky all around. Wiggle the cable side to side. The image just died. Saw the iron in my hand. Gonna fix the port now, man. The reflow is soldered on each pin. The fix is now a solid win. Sega Genesis is back. The ports are solid, that's a fact. Listen to the rhythm of the sound. Sonic bounces all around. Sega Genesis is back. The ports are solid, that's a fact. Listen to the rhythm of the sound. Sonic bounces all around.
So here we go. The Sega Genesis is all put back together and it cleaned up really nicely. I have it connected to my TV via the composite AV connection. So let's go ahead and put in Sonic and turn it on and see if it still works. And there we go. And we can try wiggling the AV connector as well, just to make sure that that's still solid. The power connector is solid. Everything looks to be solid on the back. So I think the Sega is good to go. I did go ahead and plug in my controller, so let's just make sure that that port works. Which is going to be kind of hard for you to see me play. See if I can do it like this. But yet we can confirm that it most definitely works. Now there is one thing that I noticed on this Sega in particular. If I restart, I'm sure it's not going to get picked up well on the camera, but there are some pretty significant jail bars on the screen. I don't know if that's an issue with this specific Sega Genesis motherboard revision, or if it's an issue with bad caps on this board. I'm not going to worry about it right now, but that might be something to revisit in a future video. So today's fix ended up being an easy one. This just required a reflow of the AV connector port on the back of the Genesis. Just like the last Sega Genesis, the solder points on the board became old and weak and were no longer making a very good connection. It's an easy fix. Grab the soldering iron, reflow those connections, and we were good to go. The only difference on this Sega Genesis is that we couldn't actually see the broken joints on the board. However, the fix for both issues was still the same. So if you have an issue with the Sega Genesis where the power connector is flaky, it doesn't seem to work right, or the AV connection seems to go in and out on your TV, open up your Genesis and take a look at those solder points. It's a quick and easy troubleshooting step, and it doesn't take long at all to open up the Genesis, reflow those connections, and try it out again. Most likely that should fix your problem, and you should be good to go again on your Genesis for years to come. As I mentioned, this does seem to have some jailbar images on the screen. Again, I don't know if that's an issue with this specific revision of the motherboard, or if it's an issue with bad caps on the board and I just need to recap the entire board. If you have any information on the jailbar issue that we saw on the TV, or you just want to see me recap this motherboard, please leave a comment down below and let me know. With that, thank you so much again for watching. Now I need to go figure out where I'm going to put this Genesis since I've already fixed this one and I don't know what I'm going to do with two of them. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.